Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Friends, tonight we are going to understand the technique of meditation of the Buddha. The Buddha's technique of meditation is both serenity and insight. The Buddha's technique of meditation is well designed and given in this discourse, which is the great discourse on establishment of mindfulness. The Buddha delivered this particular discourse when the Buddha was dwelling at the place called Kuru in the present-day Delhi, where the Buddha addressed the monks and said this prologue. This is the prologue, this is the introduction, the synopsis of the sutta. The Buddha said, Bhikkhus, this is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the four establishments of mindfulness. Friends, this is how the Buddha enunciated the purposes of the discourse. This great discourse on establishments of mindfulness, where the Buddha pointed out first the purposes. For all these purposes, there are 5 different purposes. What are the 5? For the purification of beings, first one. Second, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation. Third, for the disappearance of pain and grief. Fourth, for the attainment of the true way. The fifth, for the realization of Nibbana. So what is that direct path? As the Buddha said, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. So now the Buddha said here, what 4? I explained in the 4. Buddha said, what 4? Here bhikkhus, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body. That is the first one. Contemplating the body in the body. Then contemplating the feelings in feelings. Then the third, contemplating mind in mind. Then the fourth one, contemplating phenomena in phenomena. Those are the 4, which are called 4 establishments of mindfulness. Now the Buddha explained these 4 one by one. Contemplating the body in the body, contemplating in feelings in feeling, contemplating mind in mind, and contemplating phenomena in phenomena. Now, friends, the Buddha explained these 4 establishments of mindfulness one by one. The first one is the contemplating the body in body. First of all, we all have to understand clearly that the Buddha's technique of meditation is nothing but objective observation. Means this meditation introduced by the Buddha is to observe things as they really are objectively. In order to observe things, first we have to practice serenity meditation. Without serenity, we cannot practice insight. So Buddha introduces us this both serenity and insight in tandem. That is what is called tandem meditation. That is what is given here in this particular discourse from the very beginning to the end. So, in order to practice this meditation, Buddha first pointed out 4 different factors to be developed, 4 different factors to be maintained in our mind all the while we are practicing meditation. So those 4 factors are given here: ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, and having subdued longing and grief for the world. Ardent, that means we have to practice ardently with effort. That is very much significant for the practice of meditation. These are the 4 factors to be maintained while we are meditating. First thing is practice ardently with an effort, unremitting, continuous effort. Practice with an effort. Secondly, clearly comprehending means understand what you are doing. Understand clearly what you are doing. Third, mindful, be mindful of what you are doing. And then the 4th one is having subdued longing and grief for the world. What is that? That is giving up both grief and longing and grief, means covetousness and ill will. Both these are to be shunned and come to the state of equanimity. Like that, where we have to maintain equanimity. So, if I put this 4, if I tell you this 4 again, we have to practice ardently, clearly comprehending, mindfully, and equanimously. These are very much significant for the practice of our meditation. That is the Buddha's meditation. How to practice meditation. Now the Buddha gave the explanation here, contemplation of the body. You know, when you practice contemplation of the body, there are 21 different objects for meditation. Of the 21, the first one is mindfulness of breathing, where the Buddha said how to practice mindfulness of breathing. Here it is said, now bhikkhus, does a bhikkhu dwell contemplating the body in the body? Here a bhikkhu, having gone to the forest. Now these are the places where we can practice easily, comfortably. That is why the Buddha recommended these 3 places. First, Buddha said, go to the forest to practice. Secondly, go to the foot of a tree. Third, Go to an empty place, empty hut, empty house, empty place, where there are less sounds, less not noisy places. There are where there are less disturbances. That is the meaning. Sit down properly and practice. When practice mindfulness of breathing, this is the Buddha's instructions. The Buddha gave us these 4 different steps to practice. In accordance with this sutta, Buddha said, first, simply you have to understand your breath. Just mindful, he breathes in. Just mindful, be mindful, give your attention and simply understand your breath. In breath. Just mindful, he breathes out. Breathing in, breathing out. As you are practicing this, at a time you can understand that your breath is long. Breathing in long, he understands, I breathe in long. You know these translations. I am not fully satisfied with these translations. However, we have to use this and we can discuss this later and understand this clearly. These 4 steps are long breath. When it is long breath, you have to understand that it is long. You don't want to say, I breathe in long like that. Then breathing out long. You understand that. Then breathing out, breathing in short. You have to understand your breath as it is short. Breathing in long, breathing out long. These are the steps. First step, breathing in long, breathing out long. Second one, breathing in short, breathing out short. That is the second one. Then the third one, experiencing the whole body. Whole body here means whole breath body. It should be whole breath body, not this body. Whole breath body means whole breath. I will breathe in. He trains thus. Now you are training your mind. Experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. That means you are experiencing your breath, whole breath body in, whole breath body out. That is the third step. Then the fourth step. What is the fourth step? Tranquilizing the bodily formations. This term tranquilizing is not the right term. You can't tranquilize. There is tranquility. It must be tranquility. That is experiencing calmness. That is calm in your breath. Calm in your breath. You can understand your breath is calming. You understand calm in breath. Breathing in, breathing out. So friends, those are the 4 steps. That is the first meditation method. First object for meditation. What is that? Mindfulness of breathing. Then second one. Second one is the Buddha recommended to be mindful. All the while we are practicing, we have to be mindful. That is why this discourse is given as mindfulness, establishment of mindfulness. You have to establish mindfulness in these different places. Again, bhikkhus, when walking, a bhikkhu, when walking, understands I am walking. When standing, he understands I am standing. When sitting, he understands I am sitting. When lying down, he understands I am lying down. So he understands accordingly however his body is disposed. That means, friends, we all beings have only 4 postures. Whatever we are doing, we have only 4 postures. What are the 4? We are walking, we are standing somewhere, or we are sitting, or we are lying down. Those are the four postures we all have. So all the 4 during the 4 postures, wherever we are, whatever the way we are exposed, we have to be mindful. That is the meaning. We have to understand, we have to have awareness of what we are doing. You know, the mindfulness, the term mindfulness has different meaning, like attention, awareness, earnestness, alertness, like that. Bare attention, non-judgmental attention, like that. There are different meanings. So all these meanings are encompassed with the word that the Buddha used in Pali, sati, S-A-T-I, sati. Now the third object for meditation. When going forward and returning, Buddha said, when you go forward and turning and coming back, be mindful and clearly understand it. When you are looking ahead and looking away, looking this way, that way, then be mindful and clearly understand it, clear comprehension. Then when you are bending and stretching limbs, be mindful. Then when wearing robes, like monks when they wear robes and carrying the outer robe and bowl, be mindful. For laypersons, whenever you wear your pants, your sarong or shirt, be mindful. That is the meaning. And then when eating, drinking, consuming food and tasting, be mindful and clearly understand. Then finally the Buddha said, even when defecating and urinating, be mindful. Act with clear comprehension. When walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, and even keeping silent, be mindful. Understand what you are doing. Be grounded. Understand what you are doing. That is the meaning. Now, as the fourth object for meditation. These are different objects for meditation. We don't want to practice all these, but even we can practice one, and when we practice one, we can understand others as well. First, we have to start of all these. First one should be the first. First one is mindfulness of breathing. That is the one to be practiced, friends. First. Okay, now the fourth one, the practice. This object is mindfulness of foulness, the bodily parts. You have to dissect your own body and understand different parts of the body. Buddha has dissected this body, anatomized this body into 32 parts. What are the parts? All these are impurities, not pure things. Nothing made of gold, silver, or even iron, or even woods. Nothing. All flesh, blood, sinews, all this stuff. So these are the things that the Buddha introduced. Buddha taught us things in this body, 32 parts. There are in this body head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrows, kidneys, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, undigested food in the stomach, feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, mucus, synovial fluid, and urine. We have to objectively observe these, understand this. Means mentally we have to give attention and understand the shape and color of these places, these organs, and we have to understand objectively without repulsiveness. Understand with an equanimous mind. Now the fifth one, all these are under the components of bodily contemplation of body. Now the fifth one is element. We have elements in this body, 4 elements. What are the 4? The earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element. These 4 are also to be observed objectively. The sixth one is the 9 channel ground meditation, channel ground contemplation. Mindfulness of the 9 channel ground contemplation. Cemetery. You know, unfortunately we can't practice this nowadays, because the Buddha recommended the practitioners, the monks, to visit the cemetery, the charnel ground, where corpses are thrown away. The first one, as though he were to see a corpse thrown aside in a charnel ground 1, 2, or 3 days dead, after death, and bloated, livid, and ores in matter. A bhikkhu means practitioner. A practitioner compares this very body with it thus. The purpose is you go there, see the corpse, the nature of it, and compare it with you. You have to understand, this body, this my body, it is not exempt from the fate. This is the fate. This is what happened to me also. In such a way, the practitioner should compare with his own body. Like that, the second day, after maybe a couple days later, he visit again. He were to see a corpse thrown aside in a charnel ground, being devoured by crows, hawks, vultures, dogs, jackals, or various kinds of worms. A bhikkhu compares this very body with it thus. This body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. Friends, like that, 9 times Buddha pointed out, Buddha recommended the practitioners, the monks or nuns or lay persons, to visit the charnel ground from time to time, 9 times, and check, understand the real nature of the corpse, then compare it with your own. That is the meaning here, 9 times. Okay, that is the end of the contemplation of body. Now we come to contemplation of feelings. Feelings, the Buddha said there are 9 types of feelings in this body, this corporeality, and the mind, mental feeling and physical feeling. Buddha said the 9, a pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. 3. Then carnal pleasant feeling, non-carnal pleasant feeling, then carnal painful feeling, non-carnal painful feeling, carnal neither painful nor pleasant feeling, and non-carnal neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Those are the 9 feelings. So whenever we have such feelings, we have to understand. Mainly there are 3. What are the 3? First 3. We can experience pleasant feeling. We can experience painful feeling. Then we can experience neither painful nor pleasant feeling. These 3 are to be understood first. So that is how to practice feeling, contemplation on feelings. Then the third component, third section of the 4 establishments of mindfulness, the third one is contemplation on mind. Here the practitioner, the bhikkhu, will contemplate in mind. Here a bhikkhu understand a mind with lust as mind with lust. As we have practiced mindfulness of breathing, we have to understand our own mind. First, mindfulness of breathing. When you practice mindfulness of breathing, you can understand your mind. You have to be mindful to understand your own mind. You have thoughts. You have different types of thoughts. Discursive thoughts even. Discursive thoughts of sensuality. Discursive thoughts of ill will. Discursive thoughts of cruelty. Such thoughts. Here the Buddha recommended this. When the mind is lustful, understand the mind as lustful. That's lust mind is to be understood as lust mind. Then when the mind without lust, understand mind as without lust. Then when the mind is hateful, understand as it is hateful. When the mind is not hateful, without hatred, understand without hatred. Then the mind is delusion. When the mind is with delusion, understand as it is delusion. When it is without delusion, understand that it is without delusion. Then contracted mind as contracted mind. Our mind is, at a time, our mind is contracted. Another time it is distracted. When the mind is contracted, understand it as it is. That is why we are mindful. We are observing. Understand contracted mind as contracted mind, distracted as distracted mind. Then, as we are practicing, our mind is developed. When the mind is developed, it is exalted. When it is exalted, understand as it is exalted mind. If it is not exalted, understand it is unexalted. As unexalted as unexalted. Then surpassable mind. Surpassable mind as surpassable mind. Unsurpassable mind as unsurpassable mind. When the mind is concentrated, understand this mind is concentrated now, or it is not concentrated, understand that it is unconcentrated. Unconcentrated as unconcentrated. Finally, when the mind is liberated, you see, when the mind is liberated, you to understand, oh, my mind is now liberated. It's a liberated mind. If it is not liberated, understand that it is not yet liberated. So, like that, Buddha introduced this 16 different ways to practice, understand the nature of your mind. That is the third component, third section of the 4 establishments of mindfulness. The final one, that is the fourth section, fourth component is contemplation of phenomena, Dhamma, Dhammanupassana, where the Buddha taught us to understand, to experience, to see things as they really are. This is completely vipassana. All these are based on vipassana. As you have practiced concentration better so far, you have good concentration. Now you are supposed to observe and understand clearly vipassana, insight. First understand and remove your 5 hindrances, that totally, cut off 5 hindrances, totally. All the while you are practicing concentration, you have 5 hindrances subdued. Underneath, you have this. But at this point, you are supposed to cut off your 5 hindrances. Then 5 aggregates are to be understood. You know, we have 5 aggregates. What are the 5? Form, feelings, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. These 5 are to be understood clearly. Of the 5, the first one is form. Form means not this body. Not this body. All these 5 aggregates are arising and perishing in the 6 sense bases. These are to be understood clearly. Observing, understanding 5 aggregates as they are. Once, as practitioners, we should not cling to 5 aggregates. If we cling to 5 aggregates, the Buddha said, that is what is called suffering. That is what is called suffering. If you cling to 5 aggregates, that is called suffering. Therefore, we have to understand 5 aggregates through the 6 sense bases and should let them go. Whenever they arise, we should not cling to 5 aggregates. If we do not cling to, they simply disappearing, appearing and disappearing, coming, going. That's it. Now the 12 bases, we have 12 bases, internal 6 and external 6. What are the internal? Eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. External, forms, sounds, smell, taste, tangible objects, and mental objects. All these 12 are to be understood. Realized. These are to be realized, not simply understanding. These are to be realized by the practitioner. Then the 7 factors of enlightenment. You know, this is a long discourse. 7 factors of enlightenment are to be understood clearly. What are the 7? Mindfulness, discrimination of phenomena, enlightenment factor. Discrimination of phenomena is Dhammanupassana, Dhamma Vichaya, Dhamma Vichaya Sambojjhanga. Then the energy in enlightenment factor, rapture enlightenment factor, tranquility enlightenment factor, concentration enlightenment factor, and equanimity enlightenment factor. Those are the enlightenment factors. Then the Buddha at the end, as the fifth section of the Dhammanupassana, contemplation on phenomena as phenomena, Buddha gave the fifth one as the Four Noble Truths, which is the Buddha explained this arising and perishing, origination and cessation of dukkha in details. The Four Noble Truths, the suffering, the origination of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. Then Buddha explained this in details. Since we have limited time, we can't explain all this. Like Buddha said, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, union with what is displeasing, separation from what is pleasing, not obtaining what one wants. All these are called suffering. And finally, Buddha said, in brief, 5 aggregates subject to clinging. 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. All these are to be understood. And then the exposition is given in details. This is how the Buddha explained. As you have the discourse, please read this discourse, and we can discuss this further next day. We don't want to discuss a new discourse. I prefer to discuss with you the same discourse next day, where you can ask your questions, and then we can understand this thoroughly. This is the origination and cessation of suffering. Buddha said this, the suffering arises because of craving. Then the Buddha pointed out where the craving arises and where the craving ceases. Finally, as the conclusion, Buddha said, monks, if anyone should develop this 4 establishment of mindfulness in such a way for 7 years, one of 2 fruits could be expected for him. What are the 2? Either final knowledge here and now, that means you can attain enlightenment here in this very world, or if there is a trace of clinging left, non-return. You can become a non-returner. That's the meaning. Either you can attain full enlightenment, or you can become a non-returner within 7 years. Then Buddha said, let alone 7 years, within 6 years you can do that. Then said, let alone 6 years, within 5 years you can do that. Let alone 5 years, you can do it within 4 years. Then said, within 3 years you can do, within 2 years, or within 1 year you can do this, or within 7 months you can do this, or within 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, within 2 months, within 1 month, even within half a month, you can do that. Finally, the Buddha said, monks, if one would practice in accordance to this method, in accordance with this technique, if anyone would practice in this way, 4 establishments of mindfulness in such a way for 7 days, one of 2 fruits could be expected for him. What are the two? Is the final knowledge here and now, or if there is a trace of clinging left, non-return. You can become either an arahant or a non-returner, anagami. Then the Buddha said, finally the Buddha said, bhikkhus, again the synopsis. The Buddha said, bhikkhus, this is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the true way, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the four establishments of mindfulness. It was with reference to this that this was said. That is what the Sublime One said. The bhikkhus were elated and delighted in the Sublime One's words. Friends, that is the end of this discourse. Buddha's technique of meditation. Let's all understand, read this, understand this, and put this into practice so that we can experience that wonderful nature of life. We can understand that real peace, real happiness of Nibbana. May we all attain that supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.